Is it you?
Yes, it is. It is I. It is I. Where are you? I can't wait to see your face. Where
Can
is
you
you?
see?
I see an SB. So
If I press that button, maybe you can
I,
see me.
there you are. Thank you so very much for taking the time to do this.
It's a pleasure.
Perfect. Yeah, I had a big, brilliant idea that we would make it a podcast because Stephanie, who is a muse of mine, is the one who led me to you, and she is really spectacular. In any case, it's all funny how people find each other on Twitter. It's such an amazing thing, you know. But let's hear about you. So
The whole social media thing is incredible. You know, it's just all kinds of amazing things have happened. I've met all kinds of wonderful people,
right.
And I'm able to teach 2 courses because of social media.
Isn't that incredible? And my career, I went from having a career in the shitter, you know, being a middle-aged producer who quit her job to go rogue and to go independent. And, you know, it was crickets initially, you know, when you start to actually get your voice out there. When you're a media person, it's never good to discuss politics. And, but what's so great is in times of war and revolution, all the shit previously gets tossed out and you have to figure out what works for you. And what worked for me was being truthful and honest. And so now, you know, it's very exciting to see so many of my friends who've been really active in the resistance on many different levels, having great successes in many ways, both politically and vocally and artistically. So let's hear about you, because clearly your art has inspired the people that I'm working with and the free press activists I'm working with. So I would love to hear about what goes on in that head of yours.
Well, it's no different than always. I've been a obstreperous, pissed off, angry political caricaturist since the 70s.
Wow.
I started this whole thing when I was 16.
Fantastic.
So that was really the time of Watergate. 16 would make me. That would be 72. So
don't ask me to do math. That's on you, brother.
I'm not yet 63, so I'm still.
How old are you? 63? What'd you say?
I'll be 63 in October.
Fantastic. I'm 53, and I admire everybody who's got decades on me, because so many of the people who are my muses lived in the 50s, 40s, you know, 60s, and so that's great that you were aware. And also artistically doing something about it back in Watergate era.
I just have to tell you, if that phone rings,
you do what you got to do. This is free press activism. It's all nothing.
On 2 calls.
You got it. Yeah.
2 magazines.
Yeah.
So
good. Work is good. Work is good. I'm so happy for you. You're busy. You're getting work.
Work is giving me the chance to say things I want to say, then that's really what it's about.
Let's hear what you want to say, because
the thing is, when I was a kid, just a little before your time, there was a tremendous upheaval, as you know, in the country in the 60s. A lot of revolutions took place. There was the Civil Rights Revolution, there was the sexual revolution, there was Vietnam, and then there was Nixon.
Right.
And so I come out of that period where people, I live in New York, I grew up in Brooklyn.
Right.
People were having fistfights on street corners.
Right.
Over Nixon, over the war. You know, you couldn't be right wing and in favor of a war that was losing.
Right.
If your ass is on the line, if you're going there, even people who were neutral or on the right, when they came back, were highly radicalized by what was happening and all the lies that came down. Right. And then there was the Pentagon Papers,
right,
which totally tore open the whole scheme.
Right.
And then Watergate, which did damage to whatever credibility was left in government. And so Nixon was ousted, and I'm coming in during all this time, you know. Mm-hmm. And so then I go on from there to get a job So I went to Cooper Union. I graduated in '76. I got a job on a newspaper in New Jersey.
Nice.
A very corrupt place. So that's like the perfect place to draw cartoons.
Uh-huh.
That it turns out that the editors of the paper were all on the take.
Shocking.
Okay. Shocking.
There was corruption in media back then. I can't imagine. Well, no, Jersey, it's interesting, man.
New Jersey was very special. New Jersey had a special reputation for this, and they had a long-standing, decades-long relationship with the Democratic machine in New Jersey, which was run by a boss. Remember Boardwalk Empire?
Yes, sure.
Ever see that? So that's the kind of a boss Frank Hague was. That character was based on a guy who was a boss further south, but in a similar dictatorial vein, like a mafia boss.
Right.
Frank Hague ran Hudson County. And that newspaper was still, even though Hague had long died, but that paper was still in that same mode of pleasing local politics. Yeah. So if I came along and wanted to do cartoons about those pals, suicide, they fired me. Making a very long story short, I came back to New York. I got a job. I got freelance jobs. And ever since that time, I've been doing freelance.
That's awesome.
So this is really working professionally in local papers in Brooklyn since '72.
That's awesome.
Working professionally as a daily guy since '76, and then as a freelance guy since '77.
Oh, gee. I love it.
This is my 40th anniversary in freelance.
I'm so happy for you. I'm so happy for you. All my friends, so many of my friends are artists, and they have the divine madness, you know, that comes with being an artist. That's a Greta Garbo line that she applied to John Barrymore, one of my favorite muses. And so as somebody who's been able to cut it freelance, that's pretty damn great. And I've been interviewing various artists in the Resistance who've inspired me. I don't know if you know Isaac Cordal. He's an incredible Spanish artist. I'll send you some stuff of his. But he creates these little sculptures of figurines, and then he plants them in places. So these little banker types, little miserable creatures with briefcases are like, you know, in water and kind of hiding all over the world. And then Ron English, I interviewed him for Free Press activism as well. His art was co-opted in Super Size Me. And I don't know if you ended up seeing that, but all that great sort of demonic.
About it, yeah.
Yeah, and I told him, I go, how great, that must have been great for you. He goes, I didn't even know it was going to happen. The director hadn't even told him the art was going to be in it. Later they became friends, but it's kind of, I thought, well, that must have really put you, you know.
Bro, you got to get permissions.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And even Twitter, obviously, it's a fine line because your work is inspiring us. And again, I'm a child who saw the 60s, the 70s, the greed is good 80s, the 90s, on into now, and I'm a pissed off middle-aged woman who has 30 years of media history from when I worked for a weekly that was an independent Pulitzer Prize winning weekly on through 15 years at Fox 11 here in Los Angeles. So taking a check from Rupert taught me a lot, as I'm sure the mob bosses in your town taught you.
What did you do at Fox?
I was a producer and an investigative producer for most of my time there, but I did anything that needed to be done. And prior to the flu of death, I used to always say everything I ever learned, I learned there, because you really learn the cold realities of the world, both on a business level, but also in what's happening in the world, because as an investigative producer, I'm always rooting out nefarious creatures, which is why I have a soft spot in my heart for fraudsters, which is why I've enjoyed, not really, this has been misery for most of us, but I've certainly enjoyed the ease it takes to investigate, because I've been investigating these guys my whole career, and in the middle of the night I'll remember something I investigated about the real fake president related to a Ponzi scheme 11 years ago. Like, oh yeah, he was the carny they trotted out to bilk all those characters to give them money for their phony products. Yeah, he's a Ponzi guy. So all of us with all this knowledge.
All his life. He has been a front man and a fraudster and a grafter and a grifter all his life. And how anybody could be so stupid as to vote for him.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because as I'm sure you have stupid people in your life, I have many. I count myself one of them, but there's those who voted out of greed because this was their man. They thought they were going to make more money. There's those who hate their mothers, you know.
the upscale voters, like my brother-in-law who has property in Florida, knew that you vote for Trump, you're voting with your class.
Yeah.
Right?
Wow.
So he definitely felt that this was very good for his bottom line.
Thank you.
Right?
Thank you. And isn't it nice to see how it's misfiring?
Yeah, my God.
Isn't it nice?
It's all coming down so fast. It didn't take, and even today, I don't know if you saw the headline today, Trump is in Paris now, and he had an interview with a French reporter, and he defended Junior by saying, well, it was a normal thing to do, you know. And most people would do that.
Right, of course. And then the problem is
that's practically a confession. That's practically saying that I would do it, and that's practically saying when opportunities like that came along, I took them. So how hard is it going to be to get this guy? I think that Mueller has him by the balls right now.
I hope that you are right. I work with on our free press activism team is an incredible attorney, and so I work with her closely because I'm Fargonzo and she's the law, and she understands fraud, and she knows the narrow focus of the law, and she's always trying to focus me, and I refuse to be focused because I think that Gonzo's what's making the difference. The art that you do is making the difference. The truth that gets out by people unshackled by corporations. I was freelance pretty much all my career. I was freelance at the LA Times 15 years. I was freelance at Fox 13 out of the 15 that I was there. And that gives us an unshackled perspective a lot of people don't get. We get to put our fingers in many things. I'm sure you have lots of things you do. I write books, I make movies. You know, you can kind of do things that people who are getting corporate checks regularly can't really do. And I'm sure even when you stuck your neck out during this war and you made your art as visceral as you did, I'm sure people in your life were like, fuck, aren't you cutting a little too close to the bone, you know?
Those people don't exist in my life.
Wow.
You know, when you are so committed to something,
yeah,
you wind up shedding all the people who don't get it.
Yeah, that's right.
Including my wife of 28 years. Oh. She said to me at one point, how I like you very much. She says, it's just do you have to do all that illustration? And, you know, that's sort of like saying, you know, someone married to Fred Astaire saying, I love him, but for the dancing, you know what? Why do you have to do all that dancing?
Oh my God. I'm just crying because
I'm the one who should be crying. It was a tough divorce, let me tell you. It was really hard to get out of that one.
Well, I'm crying on multiple levels because there's a lot of people who aren't in my life right now because I chose to be truthful to the world. And I'm also blown away that you happen to mention Fred Astaire because, of course, he's my main muse, like number one muse, right? You know?
Well, there's nothing more perfect than Fred Astaire.
No.
But you know about him, you know that it's not an accident. He worked very, very hard.
Well, I also, yes.
Every idea in a Fred Astaire dance is something that was worked to perfection, and they didn't shoot it until. And then, if you notice the movies, hardly there's a cut.
Right.
You're watching a live performance.
Right.
From 35, whatever it is.
Well, that he worked his ass off. Yes.
Yeah.
Total perfection.
So it was like, it wasn't the camera, it was him. He did the work until it was ready. And then it looked as though it was nothing. It looked as though it took no effort. But in order to do that, any artist needs to spend all night tearing your hair out. You see all the hair's gone. And,
to make it look effortless. Well, he's my muse because, yes, a perfectionist, and they also, what they spent the money on was the Irving Berlin music and the Cole Porter music and the gowns and all of that. But Fred brings up a great point because there was a time when men had class. Now, I'm you know, obviously mob bosses don't have class. Capone didn't have any class. Capone got the scars on his face for disrespecting a woman. He had a syphilitic brain at the end, and as we know, the real fake president calls his sexual revolution, his personal Vietnam avoiding STDs. So, so when we marvel at those who put him into the White House, the popular vote loser was put there by those who thought it would be good for their greed, those who have problems with moms, those who don't care about integrity and actually prefer catchphrases, which again brings us back to art. And if you need to grab a phone, go for it. But your art is kind of the equivalent of counteracting the catchphrase, because the catchphrase of lock her up, build a wall, Crooked Hillary, created by marketeers, was very effective because everybody watching Family Guy has seen the episode where the wife runs for mayor. I don't watch the show, but I was forced to watch this. The wife of the show runs for mayor, and she wins because she's up there going, 9/11, terrorists, and then when she gets down to anything that's really important, it's just crickets. So you got a guy who's bright and shiny. They've seen him on TV for 20 years, and he's up there going, build a wall, ugh! And I know those of us who work the polls.
Trump said it in an interview to somebody that whenever he would be at a rally and he would see people starting to stir or get bored or leave, he knew to go right to the wall.
Yeah.
He would bring up the wall and they go right back to their seats and they scream their guts out.
Right.
What does that tell you? This is about racism.
Right.
It's about hating people, hate people who look differently than you do, and it's not like a thing that you can't make up something that will get people that riled up.
No, you can't. But again, it's ignorance. Ignorance.
They're feeling in towns all over America. I don't know. You're in LA?
Yeah. I don't even feel safe here.
All right. I'm in New York. I live on the Upper West Side of Manhattan. You and I both live in worlds where you go through your day and you see people of every color.
Yeah, right.
Every language.
I forget that.
And it doesn't piss you off. In fact, you kind of probably dig it. I dig it. I think it's fantastic. I used to talk to a kid who was at a book stall in Times Square. They have now a book stall in Times Square. I bought a book, and they had a box of little hands, little plastic hands, and it was labeled Trump hands. And so I said to him, why don't you get one of those? That's, everybody needs to have a Trump hand.
Right.
And he English. He says, I am French. And I said, Macron, oui, Trump, no. And he smiled.
That's beautiful.
But this is New York, right? This is LA. This is Chicago.
Right.
This is metropolitan areas in the United States.
Right.
But now what's happening is in towns in North Carolina and in Alabama and in Tennessee are having brown, Asian, Muslim people coming in. They need them. They're good workers.
Mm-hmm.
They're jobs for them. They're not taking big wage jobs.
Mm-hmm.
In a lot of cases, they're actually very educated, cultivated people work in universities and high tech.
Gee, what does that sound like?
And people are freaking the hell out because they are being cut out of the action. They don't have educations. The education system fails them and their children. Plus, their lives are now flooded with opioids that are turning middle America into the South Bronx.
Right.
Because of addiction and how crippling that is.
Right. Right.
Here comes a bozo who they've seen on television as a dynamic, intelligent, in charge manager. It's all a lie. He comes in and he says, your problem is Muslims and Mexicans, and we're going to build the wall. And they just gobble it up. They eat it up without realizing the problem is not Mexicans, but it's him.
Yes.
It's him in class who co-opted the entire game and are rigging it to cut their taxes and cut their regulations and let everybody else just die. That's
absolutely.
Everybody else just die because we are now on the gravy train and we're taking over, and we don't see, unlike Henry Ford, who saw that if people made money in his plant, they could buy a car. These people don't see a connection between, taking care of all classes of people and how well the economy does. They're too stupid. They're too greedy. So this big plan, this big scheme that we're looking at is the result of somebody who figured out how to speak the language of the uneducated blue-collar guy. Because because he is himself an uneducated blue-collar guy, even though he did well in real estate. He has that same. He never really moved out of Queens.
He actually, he always failed his way in real estate, actually. He was always in hock to somebody worse than him because nobody legit would bail him out. What he did do well in was the Ponzi, reality TV, shiny object crap, and the pyramid schemish stuff. So he needs people enough because he's a carny who knows 100 ways to steal a buck, which he learned from felonious family members, just like his son-in-law learned them from felonious family members. So America, you boggle both Steve and I, but on the other hand, we know those pastors have been telling you that the Veep is your boy. He's another anchor hack. So you got this whole layer of people who have pastors telling them the vice president's your guy because he's going to do all those things that we tell you, you should hate, and so we have this additional layer of pastor for profits who basically, live off of the vig they get from their flocks, who are just people trying to find their way. I don't believe in this. People are stupid. I believe, yes, they're greedy. Yes, they've been misled by 20 years of phony pastors and misogyny being preached in, with right-wing bullhorns and Jolly Roger ales, making everybody feel great to be a bigot, I call it Rupert scurvy. I still have it. I was there for 15 years. I'm going to be shaking off the scourge.
Jolly Roger ales.
Jolly Roger ales, please.
Jolly Roger Stone also.
Well, yes, that's true. All the Jolly Rogers, but if there's anything that I can pray for or pray on, that brilliant brain that I'd like to see at night when it's dreaming and I'd like to know what's going on there, ferments on Jolly Roger ales, because how the pirate, connection wasn't made, I don't know, because he pirated and co-opted the soul of so many, and my producing partner thinks he's probably on some island wherever the Enron guy is, and I wouldn't be surprised when you have that much money.
He's roasting on a spit in hell.
I hope so.
All eternity.
I hope so.
Rendering, and the fat is rendering.
I hope so. I mean, I don't want to disparage his wife. I'm sure she loved him or family or whatever. I'm one of those, like, send light, even though you want to swing a baseball bat, send light. On the other hand, I've seen what's happened over time. The bigotry got so cozy. We have collaborator journalists everywhere. Billionaires own the media. We don't have any truth except coming from free press activism. There's no truth without spin or some billionaire. Even if there's newspapers doing good work, if it's owned by a billionaire, that same newspaper isn't going to be rooting out the nefarious things that billionaire does. So until we solve the riddle, well, actually, you're solving it. Just keep doing art. Art is what is moving the needle. Art is moving the needle.
People need to be awake.
Yeah.
And we've been asleep a lot.
Yeah.
And the left has an awful lot to account for because,
absolutely,
if you didn't like Hillary Clinton, it was your job to go harder for someone else.
Right.
You wanted Bernie Sanders, figure out why black people wouldn't vote for him.
Go hard.
This was
right.
our problem.
Right.
Bernie Sanders, I voted for him, but I never thought he was a serious presidential candidate. As an old Jew from Vermont, I'm sorry, I just wasn't buying it. And then he took off. He caught fire,
mm-hmm.
and we needed to advocate for him.
Right.
We didn't do a good enough job. So now you have Hillary, and you go sit on your hands. 6 million people fewer voted for
right.
in the election than did last time.
Right.
A lot of that has to do with voter suppression.
Yes, of course. There was a cyber targeting, micro targeting, voter suppression, and what was crazy is it worked enough to keep small numbers of voters home in swing states, which is where they put their money, and which Facebook took $1 million a day for, which they won't show us those ads because they're rife with misogyny, bigotry, fear. I've seen some of the ads. I would not publicly post those ads because I wouldn't want that scar on my soul. And yet, these stoolies and these children of felonious parents were put on the covers of billionaire fanzines like Forbes. Fuck Forbes. They put Kushner on the cover and said, the guy who got him elected because he builds a stealthy Silicon Valley machine. Fuck you. Fuck you. Not you, Steve, but fuck that.
200,000 fewer voters in Wisconsin. 200,000 voters suppressed in Wisconsin. and Trump won by 20,000 votes.
Exactly. Right.
He won by 78,000 votes in 3 key swing states.
Right.
That there are more people who live in my block
Exactly.
than the amount that Trump won by.
They were planning to cash in on the cachet of. I've learned this from the attorney that I work with. They were planning to cash in on that cache of data. They knew they had a golden platinum mine. The new gem was going to be this, right? The electoral college win was one of those. Oops, we did it. Oh fuck, look, we did it. But the way Forbes was queued up with that cover story celebrating it, and the very first thing the Hollywood Reporter did was a big thing on Amoroso's gilded elevator ride. I knew it was going to be hard, but I will say it's going faster because of people power. It's going faster because of art, of people like you. It's people like you. People understand art. They understand catchphrases. Your art is currently countering the catchphrases. That's what we need.
It's everybody doing it. Everybody on social media, everybody connecting. And, it's just, in politics, there is a great lack of clarity about what things are.
Mm-hmm.
People succeed. Republicans have succeeded by muddling issues for many years to make things, they do it, we do it, everybody does it. And it's so nice when suddenly things are clear. When things have achieved a certain level. Look, Trump we knew was a blowhard BS artist.
Right, sure.
He had any idea how deeply incompetent he is.
How bad.
And how corrupt.
How
we're seeing it. If you remember during the election, people all along kept saying at various points, soon there'll be a pivot. Soon, this is just for the campaign. This is not the real Trump. When he's president, he won't be like this. Right. He'll be something. He'll be that guy that we saw on television, right? That competent guy in the golden chair who was in charge of, master of the universe. And then it's taken us, 6 months to figure out, no, this really is him. This is really the guy. He does not, there's nothing else there.
There's two things.
I don't know if how many, Michael Moore has made an interesting comment. He says, the man has a SAG card, okay? Mm-hmm. Let's understand, he's an actor.
Well, he was also under network contract. Do we really want our presidential candidates to be under network contract to NBC? There are so many levels on this, but Maya Angelou said it best when she said, when someone shows you their character the first time, you better believe them. We knew what the character was. The character was a fraudster who made his money on branding and the Carney Act.
And when you meet actors, I just did this thing for Alec Baldwin. There was a tribute to him on television.
Great.
And I decorated the stage for the Apollo Theater.
Fabulous.
Three big murals.
Can't wait to see it.
And thank you. And so I went to the event. And in the event there was Baldwin and his family and brothers and members of the cast from 30 Rock and Saturday Night Live. And then apparently a close friend of his, Robert De Niro, was there. And of all the actors who got up to do a tribute to Baldwin, De Niro was the only one who got the producer to stop the show and ask him to do it again.
Wow.
Now, this is one of the greatest actors in the history of the movies, in my opinion.
Right.
And what he couldn't handle, and if you ever see him in an interview, it's so interesting. De Niro really can't handle being himself.
Right.
He's great with a role.
Right.
But when he's himself, he doesn't know what to do.
Right. I love it.
Feel like when Baldwin got up at the end to do his shtick, he was pretending it wasn't himself. He knew the way to do this was to be the character from 30 Rock, that acerbic, nasty son of a bitch, right? So he played that character, and it was totally perfect, hilarious, everybody loved it, and he was snappy. De Niro is stuttering, he's reading, it's all written for him, but he can't do it.
Right.
And this is the problem.
Right.
An actor is an actor.
Right.
Right? And plays this role. But now we're seeing the guy after the curtain is down, and what does he do? He sits and watches television and picks his nose. He has no life.
Yeah.
He's speaking of an imaginary friend named Jim.
Right.
He has no friends.
Well, he had 15 million additional bot friends that he paid for that didn't show up at his inaugural ball because they were phony bots.
But think about this. Do you know anybody who has no friends? I don't. Maybe homeless people in New York, who I see. But everybody has friends.
Well, I know likable sociopaths. So put it this way, I know sociopaths who have a certain degree of charm that amuse me because I live in LA, and but you don't want them in the White House. You don't want them near the White House. You don't want them to have the keys to this crap. I was hoping.
In order to be a friend, you have to have a certain amount of humility.
Yeah, right.
You have to be ready to share things with someone you treat as an equal. No one's equal.
Right.
But in terms of a friendship, you're not going to lord anything over a friend. You're not going to try to defeat him. Maybe you play cards, you defeat him that way, or a game of baseball or something. But in terms of your life, you're not trying to piss off your friend. No. He won't be your friend
anymore. No. I was so hoping he was going to be more Dick Shawn in the producers than dictator. But he is not Dick Shawn in the producers. He is that pageant queen despot, the person.
LSD. His name was LSD in that movie.
Oh my God. Mel Brooks is my go-to philosopher, so anytime I kind of hit a stumbling point, I think, well, what would Mel Brooks do? And there's something in some Blazing Saddles movie somewhere. I want to thank you.
Mel Brooks said that this is comedy. He says, when I cut my finger, that's tragedy. But when you fall into a pile of shit, that's comedy.
Yeah, that's right. Well, we have fallen into a pile of shit, and on that happy note, I just want you to, a lot of artists inspired by you, a lot of people who are moved to create art in this era. What do you want to tell them? You have sustained yourself as a freelance artist in New York. That is no small feat. How can you inspire people?
Tell the truth. Show up every day and tell the truth, and that's it.
God bless you.
If you cultivate your art, whatever that is, writing, poetry, music, lyrics, sculpture, dance, you're going to get to meet my dog in a minute.
Hi.
Jazz, come on. This is Jazz.
Hi, Jazz. Oh, Jazz, you look like a muse.
He's a part poodle, part schnauzer, and part Yorkie, so I call him a shmoo.
And all love.
Jazz, he is all love.
All love. Well, we're trying to save the universe one bit at a time here, one little tweet at a time, one truth, seeker at a time. So I want to thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day, and I'm so excited to see what comes out of your brain next. So thank you.
It was a pleasure, and I really want to thank you. I appreciate being appreciated. It makes all the difference.
Don't say anything nice. I can handle the tough shit, but not the kind shit.
We hear a lot of crickets over here, too. Best of luck, and I'll be following you on Twitter.
Thank you. Ditto, brother. Thank you.
Don't let the galoots get you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Ciao, ciao.